Welcome to Mantle Farm. I'm Josh.
And I'm Dan.
With beekeeping, there can be loads of beehives to choose from, various designs, which can be pretty confusing for those starting their beekeeping career, but those that have also been keeping bees for many years if they decide to change design. Here at Mantle Farm, though, what we've done is over the years through selling beekeeping equipment, we've managed to whittle it down to 2 designs which we think serve virtually all customers, both commercial and those who are hobbyists as well. The 2 styles are the National and the WBC, and in this video we're going to talk very briefly about the pros and the cons of the National beehive.
So the National beehive came to the UK in the 1920s. It was very popular straight away for its basic design and ease of use. It's a lot cheaper than the WBC due to the less wood needed to build it. Josh is going to talk you through the pros.
Yeah, so Dan mentioned there are various aspects to this that make it, I guess, more beneficial to some over the WBC. Price, of course, being one. You have got less woodwork, so it does bring the cost down. It's a more practical design, so easy to transport, it's easy to store as well because of its basic footprint. Inspections can be quicker as well because you haven't got the lifts involved, so therefore it does actually speed up the inspection. It's one of the most commonly used hives in the UK. Again, touching on transport quickly, it's easy to transport. So for those who want to use it commercially, or they've got a lot of alpha tapiaries and they need to move their hive, the National is actually much easier to transport from location to location, so it's very popular there again. So yeah, its basic design means that it's practical, it's easy to use, and say the cost does bring the cost down. There are some cons, which Dan will explain.
The main con probably is the insulation. Compared to the WBC hive, there isn't as much insulation, so if you do have a weak colony through the winter, it could struggle quite a lot in here. Next con is when buying a National, the stand isn't supplied with the full setup, so you can either buy that separately, or you can, as long as it's raised off the ground, it's okay. And
I guess aesthetically,
yeah,
design-wise,
it doesn't look as nice as the WBC, but it doesn't look nice purely for the practicality.
Yeah, I think if you want something that looks really pretty, then you'd probably side with the WBC. But yeah, a lot of people, certainly beginners, I think, well, it works both ways, but those that are beginning beekeeping are in one of 2 camps really. I think you either want something that looks really pretty at the end of the garden, or you are a beekeeper that's basically your hives are out of the way, you're probably not worried, and you'd rather have, or you might have more than one hive or several hives, in which the practicality of this hive outweighs the pros of the WBC.
So without further ado, we're going to take a look inside.
Yeah, we're going to take a look inside the National beehive now, and we're going to start obviously from the top. We're going to work our way down to the brood and the floor, remembering we have in this instance here got a stand with the alighting board, which is an option, which does actually, I think, complement the hive, but again, you haven't got to. Many people don't, but it isn't included if you're just buying the hive itself. Okay, so starting with the roof, we've got, it's probably worth mentioning, this particular roof is a 4-inch flat roof. With Nationals you have actually got 3 options of roofs now. With us you've got this, which is the 4-inch, and we've got an 8-inch which allows it to sit slightly further up, which allows you to put like rapid feeders and things underneath a lot more easily, and maybe more insulation if you want, if that's something you want to do. But this is the basic, your basic roof.
There are very slight vents here as well. Yeah. Much smaller than the WBC's vents, but that wouldn't make too much of a difference.
Not too much difference. You can get a pitched roof, which we haven't got to hand at the moment, but you can find those on the website. The pitch roof does actually allow for slightly more ventilation front to back, because like the WBC you've got the pitch, you've got that central, and that does again really allow you to probably put feed and things underneath. But as I say, we'll touch on that probably in another video.
So this is the crown board, very similar on the WBC. It's just a bit of plywood with holes in with bee escapes. Usually you would have these closed, however in the winter, or if you've got a weak colony, you can put feeders here and take these off. That doesn't let the bees up, but if bees happen to come into here, they can escape back down into the actual hive.
Yeah, so that's quite an important part of the crown board. One of the other benefits of the crown board, which you can use if you have to clear a super, you can buy yourself an additional crown board, and you've sandwiched your super between two crown boards, both of which can have the porta bee escapes in. And what that means is that the bees that are in the super, if that's the one you want to clear, eventually they can only go down, so that stops bees coming back up into the super. So if you've got loads of sealed or capped honey and you want to clear it, it takes about 24 hours or so, but it does mean you've got, if you haven't eradicated all your bees from the top, it's certainly a darn sight easier to get the frames out without disturbing too many bees, because they're not too happy when you start taking the honey. Understandably. So this is a super. So in here we have, as I was just explaining, this is your honey box. So this is where all of your honey frames, the shallow frames, as you can see by the actual depth of this box, that is about the size of the frames that would sit in here. And they are shorter in design, principally because if you spin centrifugally a larger frame, you've got more chance of the frame actually blowing out in the spinner. So it's a lot better to use shorter frames. Means you have to use a few more of them, but it does mean that you don't get so many mishaps when you come to extracting honey.
And different to the WBC, the WBC has metal runners, the Nationals don't. Both are designed so the frames are flush with the top of the
yeah, that's quite an important thing actually, because you've got what's called bee space, and if your bee space isn't right at the top, what can happen is they start to build comb above those frames, and they may stick either the crown board in this instance, or they might stick the frames above it to the frames below, or your queen excluder. So it's always worth making sure your frames are correct and the bees are correct as well, which is one of the reasons we at Mansell Farm actually sell them assembled, because it means that they are going out as they should be. If there is a problem, say it's we can sort that out. Whereas often people, we found over the years, a lot of people are savvy and can do it okay. I myself probably wouldn't, but Dan, you're pretty good with woodwork. But yeah, I'd rather actually just buy it assembled, and certainly supers, because certainly when it comes to this time of year, the summer, they're filling up quickly. You kind of you realise generally that you need another super. It's quite often, certainly in the early parts of beekeeping, that you might need it rather quickly, and the frames to go with it. So if it's assembled, you're good to go without having to worry about spending a little while on assembling it, and the risk of getting it wrong, because when you're in a hurry, that's when mistakes get made. So okay, so we're at the brood. We've arrived at the brood. This is a standard national brood, and in our other video talking about the WBC, we were comparing the WBC 14 by 12 brood cell, as far as cell capacity is concerned, with a standard national brood. So this is that standard national brood. So this actually, as it is, if you had a WBC hive and you wanted to, or you were looking at a WBC hive and you were worried about additional space, this will give you that additional space. So it's like for like if you go for a 14 by 12 on the WBC compared to this. And this is where the queen resides. The more space you can afford the queen, the better generally. It just allows you a little bit more time, obviously more space for her to lay eggs. And this is the egg chamber, as it were, with the brood in. Anything above that really is stores for the bees or for yourself if there's enough of it. So yeah, so that's the brood. You can buy, like we were saying, or I was saying, that you can buy a 14 by 12 for this, which does give you even more space. I think it's like 75,000 cells, or
yeah. So this one holds 50,000 cells, and the 14 by 12 holds 72,000.
Oh, it might be 72.
72,000.
Yeah, give or take. It's over 70,000. So you have increased it by at least 20,000 cells. So it's quite an increase.
And what you would normally have on top of here is a queen excluder to stop the queen coming up into the supers and laying eggs in the...
Yeah, so
where you
ideally
want your honey.
you'd want an excluder on. So that's our brood, which brings us to the floor. So the floor by design, very basic again, not anywhere near as elaborate as the WBC, which again, just as a reminder, is actually included, which this doesn't have this lighting board included, but it is an option. Again, comes assembled. So
this is what you would get as the bottom of the hive.
Yeah.
Unless you wanted to buy this to fit there.
So yeah, so your floor, we've got various features that are worth pointing out. So this here is what's called an open mesh floor. All our hives have open mesh. That's whether it be the polystyrene, the WBC, or the Cedar National here. They all have the open mesh floor, and the main reason for that is really ventilation throughout the year, but it does have other benefits as well. So for varroa mite, for example, a lot of the older style hives would have solid floors which stifled ventilation, but it also meant that varroa mite would drop off the bees off the comb and they could still climb back up into the hive. What this does is it means certainly if you've got haven't got the inspection tray in here, the mites themselves will fall to the floor or whatever surface you have below. You do also have an inspection tray, which is for that very purpose, to look and see whether or not the colony is active to start with, how big your colony is. So it's quite a good winter guide for feed and for food, for hefting the hive and making sure it's okay. And it's also a very good way of monitoring like a daily or hourly varroa drop to see, certainly after you've just started a treatment like icing sugar or apigard, it's good to see whether or not the drop has increased, which you'd expect, and then to see whether it continues or whether it slows down, which you'd hope it would as well. Also on this particular floor we have the WBC itself comes with sliders to adjust the entrance space. This comes with its own entrance block, so you can have either no entrance block, you can have the wider opening, which is this one, or you can flip it in the winter to a smaller opening like so, and that means that fewer bees and fewer wasps and predators can get in there. And later in the year you would put a mouse guard across here to reduce the space even down to probably just one or two bee spaces. So hopefully I'd say we covered the national hive, was it national standard? I can't remember now. UK, British national standard. That's it. So yeah, and say the floor. These are really good if you just want to get going. The lighting board, I think, is a really nice thing to have. It does allow you. Bees are very, very good at crash landings, and quite often you'll find if you're observing a hive that the bees will be coming to the edge of this hive, for example, and they may just crash or they may spin out and they may fall to the ground, which isn't great really, especially if the grass is wet or anything like that. So what this allows them to do is to fall off where they're aiming for and then rest, or they come to this first and then they go into the hive. It's also a great opportunity really to watch what they're taking in. Are they taking in pollen? Are there many bees leaving? Are there many bees coming back? So it's a really, really handy thing to have. Gives you a nice height above the ground, so it's not too low, so you're not straining too much with hefting large heavy boxes as well, because the honey boxes can be pretty heavy. So yeah, I think that concludes the national hive. Hopefully we've covered most of it. We hope to cover some more detailed aspects in future videos, but for now, from me and Dan,
Thank you.
the Mantle Farm, thank you.